I want to start today with a concept that it just feels wrong. It's this idea of productive neglect.
Which sounds like a great excuse for not doing the dishes.
Right? I wish. But we're talking about a very specific kind of neglect. Usually, if you ignore a problem, it just festers.
Oh, for sure.
The check engine light turns into a blown gasket. The unread emails become a missed deadline. Entropy usually wins.
In the human world, absolutely. Ignoring a problem is, well, it's generally a strategy for disaster.
But in the biological world, and specifically in the little ecosystem of a garden, sometimes walking away or just being a little bit bad at your job is exactly what triggers a breakthrough.
Hmm.
And today we are doing a deep dive into one of those moments. We're looking at an accidental discovery about propagating ferns. And it came about specifically because the gardener, well, he messed up.
Messed up might be a little harsh. Let's maybe say he optimized via stress. Yeah.
I like that spin. We are going to learn how to clone plants using fuzzy brown escape pods. We're going to talk about why ferns are actually these incredibly dramatic survivalists, and we're going to look at all of this through a very, very specific lens.
The lens of a software plumber.
Exactly. Our source today is a fascinating blog post from kianmeng.org. It's titled Notes on Gardening, Part 777, Propagating Ferns via Runners, Stolons. And it was posted on January 15th, 2026.
Okay, can we just pause on that title for a second? Part 777.
That was the first thing that jumped out at me. I mean, 777 entries on gardening. That is not a casual hobbyist.
No, that's a database.
It really tells you everything you need to know about the author, Ang. He calls himself an old software plumber.
Right, he's a guy who spends his nights tinkering with free and Libre open source software floss. He's dealing with Linux, with code repositories.
So he's used to looking at lines of code, finding the bug, patching it, and then, documenting the fix.
Precisely, and he takes that exact same mindset, that really rigorous data-driven debugging mindset, and applies it to his own backyard. He's not just watering plants.
He's administering a biological system.
And systems have bugs. Or in this case, features that just look like bugs.
And that is the crux of today's deep dive. How a software engineer looked at what seemed to be a dying plant and realized he wasn't looking at a failure, but a function call.
I love that. A function call.
So let's set the scene. It's mid-January 2026. Ang is out in the garden doing what he calls decluttering.
The legacy tenant of the garden, if you will.
Totally. Which, if you're a gardener, is code for finally dealing with the corners I've been avoiding for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
He comes across these ferns.
And these aren't his prize specimens.
Not at all. He admits these are neglected ferns that had just sprouted spontaneously in random pots. They're basically weeds he decided to keep around. But he notices something happening to them.
A visual anomaly.
Yeah. And honestly, reading his description, it sounds kind of gross. He says they were developing long, stringy, fuzzy brown growths.
Appetizing.
That sounds like a parasite, right? Or like the plant is rotting from the inside out.
Yeah.
If I saw long, brown, hairy tentacles shooting out of my houseplant, my first instinct would be to get the scissors.
And that is the instinct for 99% of people. You see brown in a garden, you think dead. You see fuzzy, you think mold.
And Ang says he initially assumed they were just roots, which, it makes sense. Roots are brown strings.
It's a reasonable hypothesis.
He figured, okay, the pot's too small, the roots are crowded, and they're just spilling out over the top.
That is the classic misconception. But you have to think about the biology of a root. What is a root's job?
To dig, to go down, find water.
Right. Roots obey gravity. They are geotropic. They want to be underground. They don't typically decide to go for a walk across the patio.
So what Ang was seeing wasn't a root system gone wrong. It was a completely different mechanism.
Exactly.
So because he's a software plumber, he didn't just snip them off. He researched the documentation.
He consulted the manual.
And he realized these were runners, or scientifically, stolons.
Stolons. It's a word we usually associate with, what, strawberries? Spider plants?
Yep, but rarely ferns. I didn't even know ferns could do this. I thought it was all about those dusty spores on the back of the leaves.
It usually is, but you have to understand, spores are hard mode.
Hard mode.
Think about it. A spore is dust. It has to land in a perfect spot with perfect humidity. It has to grow into this tiny intermediate stage called a gamophyte.
Which looks like nothing.
Right, and then that has to get fertilized to even make a fern. It is a long, perilous journey with a really high failure rate.
Okay, so spores are like trying to launch a startup with zero funding in a crowded market?
Exactly, but a stolon is an acquisition. It's a franchise expansion.
Explain that.
A A stolon is a specialized stem. It's not a root, it's an arm. And unlike a spore, which is totally cut off from the parent, the stolon stays connected.
It's an umbilical cord.
It's an umbilical cord. The parent plant is pumping energy and nutrients right through that fuzzy brown line to support the tip as it searches for a new home.
That explains why it looks so weird. It's a lifeline.
It's a lifeline and a scout. Aang describes them creeping along the ground. They're exploring the terrain, looking for a suitable, moist spot.
That image of creeping is so sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's like the plant is actually mobile.
In a way, it is. It's looking for a better server to host its application on.
So Aang realizes this. He sees these fuzzy strings not as dead roots, but as biological scouts. And he has this aha moment. He writes, I seem to have found a much more practical approach to propagating ferns than relying on spores.
He realized he could exploit the system.
So how do we hack this? What's the software plumber solution here?
It is so elegantly simple. If the stolon is looking for soil, you give it soil.
That's it.
Aang's method is, 1, identify the runner, don't cut it. 2, take a small pot of dirt and place it right under the runner. And 3, pin it down.
Pin it down like you're wrestling it.
Basically. He suggests using a U-shaped wire, maybe a rock, or just burying that part of it slightly. You have to mechanically force it to maintain contact with the soil.
You're telling the scout, mission accomplished, you found the spot.
And once it thinks it's found that spot, it triggers a state change. The stolon stops creeping and starts rooting. It sends roots down into that new pot and shoots fronds up.
And once it's established, you just cut the cord.
You cut the umbilical cord connecting it to the mother plant, and congratulations, you have a perfect clone.
That is infinitely easier than messing with spores.
It's faster, it's more reliable, and it's completely free.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's not just that the ferns can do this, it's why they were doing it.
Right.
Because Aang notes a pattern in his logs. He says, I've also observed that not all ferns exhibit this behavior.
So it's not standard operating procedure. If it were, every fern would be doing it all the time. But they weren't.
He pinpointed the variables. He said it appeared to be limited to ferns kept in small pots with inconsistent watering.
Ah, there it is. The stress test.
He specifically mentions allowing the soil to dry out. So, I mean, basically, he was neglecting them.
Well, let's look at this from the plant's perspective. You're a fern. You are stuck in a cramped apartment. That's the small pot.
Okay.
And the water, your literal life source, keeps disappearing. You are experiencing drought stress.
It's a crisis.
It is an existential threat. Now, the normal reaction might be to conserve energy, hunker down, wait for rain. But these ferns, they did something radical. They decided to liquidate their assets.
Liquidate their assets.
Burning a stolon is expensive. It takes a lot of energy to build that long, fuzzy stem. Energy that could have gone into making more leaves or taller fronds. The plant is making a calculated bet.
What's the bet?
It's saying, this location is failing. If I stay here, I die. So I'm going to take my remaining energy and I'm going to build an escape pod.
That is wild. The runner is an evacuation strategy?
It's migration. The plant is literally trying to walk away from the bad gardener.
Wow. So when Aang saw those brown strings, he wasn't just seeing growth. He was seeing panic.
Controlled panic. It's a specific survival algorithm. If water is less than critical level AND, root space equals 0, then initiate stolon protocol.
And that brings us right back to productive neglect. If Aang had been a perfect gardener, if he had watered them every single day, repotted them into giant, lush planters, would he have ever seen this?
Probably not. In a perfect environment, the fern has zero incentive to move. It would just get fat and happy right where it is. The stress was the catalyst for the expansion.
It's such a profound idea, isn't it? That comfort leads to stagnation, but the threat of failure, the drought, that's what triggers this incredible innovation.
It's a universal principle. Innovation rarely happens when everything is going great. It happens when the system is under load, when resources are scarce. That's when you find the workarounds. That's when you build the stolons.
I really want to dig into the software plumber aspect a bit more, because I feel like that mindset is the real hero of this story. A traditional gardener might look at a stressed plant and feel, what, guilty? Oh no, I'm a bad plant parent.
Right, there's an emotional attachment to the perceived failure.
But Aang, he's looking at Notes on Gardening, part 7777. He's just logging data.
The sheer volume, 777, it suggests he treats his life like a continuous integration server. He's constantly committing changes, observing the build, and logging the results.
And if you look at the sidebar of the source, it's not just ferns. He has notes on Haskell, notes on Elixir. Those are programming languages.
Right.
But then right next to that, he has notes on fish keeping, specifically betta spawn logs, and notes on dieting.
The betta spawn logs detail is fantastic. Breeding betta fish is not easy. It requires precise water chemistry, timing, observation. It's another complex system.
Exactly. His whole life is this ecosystem of tinkering. He's running simulations in the fish tank, simulations in the garden, simulations in his code editor.
And this tinkerer personality is why he didn't just throw the fern away. When a coder sees a bug, they don't just delete the program.
They investigate.
They ask, why is this happening? What triggered this error state? He debugged the fern.
He absolutely debugged the fern.
He did. He identified the input lack of water. He identified the output, the fuzzy brown strings, and instead of just fixing the input by watering it more, he decided to exploit the output.
He turned the bug into a feature.
Yes. Oh, you want to escape? Great, I'll help you escape into 5 new pots. Now I have more ferns.
It's such a cool reframing. It completely removes the moral judgment of, I neglected my plant, and turns it into, I successfully stressed the system to produce a desired result.
Which is, ironically, how a lot of software testing works. You stress test the server to see how it handles the load. Aang stress tested his ferns, and they passed with flying colors.
He mentions in the post that he's going to begin experimenting with this method immediately.
Yeah.
Because he has so many specimens just scattered around.
He's pushing the update to production. He's scaling up. And now that he knows the mechanism, he can replicate it on purpose.
He's reverse engineered the code.
Exactly.
So for the listener who might be looking at their own houseplants right now, what's the practical takeaway? What should they be looking for?
Go look at your ferns, especially if you've been a bit lazy with the watering can. Look at the base of the plant right where it meets the soil.
You're looking for those fuzzy brown strings.
Right. And do not cut them. If you see a weird, hairy stem reaching out over the side of the pot, that is a cry for help that you can turn into a free plant.
And the method, again, is pin it down into a new pot of soil and keep that new pot moist.
That's the crucial point. The runner is looking for moisture. If you pin it down to dry dirt, it won't trigger the rooting. You have to convince it that it has arrived at the promised land.
And then just be patient.
A little bit. But once it roots, you'll see a tiny frond pop up. That's your confirmation. Then you can cut the wire to the main plant.
I love it. But I also think there's a bigger takeaway here, beyond just getting free houseplants. It's about how we view stress and bugs in our own lives.
Connecting the garden back to the OS of life.
Exactly. We spend so much time trying to avoid stress. We want the lush, well-watered pot. We want stability. But looking at this fern, the stability was a trap. The growth happened because things got uncomfortable.
That's a really valid connection. I mean, if you are feeling potted and restricted, resources are low, maybe you're a bit burned out, that is uncomfortable. But biologically, that is the trigger for movement.
It's the signal to send out a runner.
Right. Instead of just sitting there and wilting, maybe you need to send out a scout. Try a new hobby. Apply for a new job. Start that side project, vegetative reproduction, for your career or your life.
And just like the stolon, it's a risk. You're using your precious energy to reach out into the unknown. You might hit dry concrete.
You might. The stolon might dry out and die. That's the risk of the scout. But if you don't send it, you're guaranteed to die in the small pot anyway.
That is surprisingly deep for a conversation about fuzzy plant stems.
Biology is always deep. It's billions of years of A/B testing. We should probably listen to it.
And we should listen to the software plumbers who take the time to document it. I just love that Aang logs all of this. It's a reminder that observation is a proactive skill. You have to be watching the system to catch the anomaly.
Productive neglect only works if you eventually check in. If Aang had neglected the ferns and just never decluttered, they would have turned into brown crunch on the floor.
That's a good point. You can ignore the system for a while to let it run, but you have to review the logs eventually.
You have to catch the runner before it dries out. There's a window of opportunity. The plant signals, I'm moving, and you have to be there to provide the landing pad.
So here is my challenge to everyone listening. Be a software plumber for a day. Look at the things in your life, your garden, your messy garage, maybe even your chaotic schedule, not as failures, but as systems.
Look for the bugs.
And ask yourself, is this bug actually a feature? Is this stress actually a stolon trying to take me somewhere else?
And seriously, check your ferns. I bet at least one of you has a dead root that is actually a baby plant just waiting to happen.
I'm going to go check mine right now. I have a Boston fern that has been looking very suspicious lately.
Good luck debugging it.
Thanks. And thanks to everyone for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Happy gardening.